Hey everyone, welcome to The Path of Me. I'm your host, Wendy Hutchinson, and I have the lovely Ayesha Hilton. I hope I said your name properly, who is a spiritual entrepreneur, creative, and author. And she has worked her magic in helping people get their messages out through creating these beautiful card decks and supporting a lot of people who are spreading their spiritual messages and their tarot messages and just their divine messages through these beautiful works of art. And she supports that process and has also been mentoring people businesswomen for over 10 years. So welcome, Ayesha. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. And I'll just say people get upset later when they realize that they haven't said my name right. So I'm just going to say it's Ayesha. So I just point at my eye and you just think
Ayesha.
Ayesha. It's
Okay.
just spelt wrong, really.
Ayesha. I should have asked.
But my own family muck it up as well.
I
So,
should
and I
have
was
asked
given this name at birth. I didn't just suddenly get
before,
it.
but
It's on
you
my
know,
birth certificate.
thank you. I will say it properly going forward in the show. But thank you for saying yes. I've been so excited to talk to you about your work, but also, your history, because I think we all have a story, right, that kind of guides us to our life's work and mission. And I wanted to ask you a little bit about your childhood and if you've always been kind of divinely guided, or tell me a little bit about you.
I've definitely always had a spiritual nature, I guess. Like I didn't have any sort of spiritual awakening or anything. I just was born and I had the, I guess, good fortune to be born into a family like had a lot of problems, but my mum became one of the first Buddhists in Australia. So
Wow.
that actually shaped me very differently from my peers. So
Mm.
I was like very poor single mum with 4 kids to 3 different dads in the 70s. We were not normal. We were vegan. We were raised vegan. We were dressed in op shop clothes. So that's an Australian British word, but that means thrift store. Like, so it's very different, going to school and my mum, would make, instead of sandwiches, it would be Lebanese bread folded over with butter and Vegemite in a roll. So we didn't eat the same food. And I think we had butter after a while, but when first we didn't have butter. So just growing up Buddhist, it really did impact me a lot. Obviously, my mum was the housekeeper for the first Tibetan lamas that came to Melbourne. So the Lama and his assistant, and then she was also the cook for retreats when Lama Zopa and Lama Yeshe came to Australia and taught. So they were the big Tibetan teachers that came out to Australia at the time, and Lama Zopa is still alive, but Lama Yeshe died while we were actually living in India. So my mum, after doing all this work, took us to India, and in that time my mum was able to get social security as a, back then they didn't have single parents. She was classified as a widow.
Wow.
So she got the widow's pension, and we lived in India very frugally, I might add. Like I shared a room with my brother, my two of my brothers, and the water only came on once a day, and you'd fill up all the buckets, and then you'd bathe out of a bucket and stuff. So it's not like we went over there and were living in luxury, but we did have the benefit of a very small income
Tell
while
me,
my mum was studying.
how did you, I can imagine how people responded to you back then because you're so fair and you've got,
Oh,
blonde hair and obviously coming from the States a bit. I mean, you were kind of immersed in the culture because of her connections, but what was that like for you as a child? How old were you when you moved over there?
I was 9, 10, and 11 and 12. So like I had a few birthdays. We went just before my birthday and came back just after my birthday. So I had lots of birthdays there. And well, being, yes, blonde and blue-eyed, and I had really gorgeous long hair. It was a bit different to what it is now. It was thicker and very lush. And, there was a lot of attention from males, and my mum didn't like it. So she cut my hair off and made me look like a boy. And I felt very ugly. I've got to say, I did not
Gosh.
look, I
Wow.
didn't feel like myself. And it's interesting because before I went to India, my actual birth certificate name is Ayesha, but my family just didn't want to call me that, even though it's on my birth certificate. So I had a different name, which I won't share here. But when I went there, I just decided I was going to use my real name. And I did. So I came back and went to school as Ayesha, whereas before at school I had my mum's married surname and this other name. And so my school reports have no relation to my actual real name. It was very funny. But living in India was really beautiful. I'm an adventurous person. I love people. So learning about the culture, we shared, I guess in America you'd call it a duplex. So it was like a little house cut in half and then a shared bathroom with the Guptas, Mr. and Mrs. Gupta and Vinny Gupta. And then outside, you'd walk down the back and there were two outside squat toilets that just went out the back. So I'm very used to squat toilets. Yeah, and I had a fabulous time, and I went to school there and, learned some of the language. I don't speak much Hindi now, but I'm excited because next year I'm taking my son, who will be 12 by then, to India for 3 months. So it'll be sort of
Wow, that's
like a reunion
amazing.
for me, and he'll be the age that I was when I left India.
Right.
So it's going to be
It kind of feels
exciting.
like a full circle moment to be able to share that.
Oh, I'm really excited. And he's like my little soulmate. Like we just get along so well.
Love
So,
that.
you know,
I love that for you. What do you think your takeaway was? Because, every season in our life, we're always learning and evolving as a soul, through our experience. So how did that shape you and your sense of spirituality and your being going forward?
I think for me, like I don't identify particularly as a Buddhist now, even though it's intrinsic. And it's like you were talking on a previous podcast with Daniel Holman about growing up Catholic, like
Mhm.
it's in you. I mean, I think Buddhism's not as scary as being a Catholic, where they, if you don't follow everything, you're going to spend eternity in hell. But we still have like the hell realms and different things and
Mhm.
learning, I think for me, a lot of the benefit of being Buddhist was, I accept that we suffer. I accept that we're going to die. And, even as a late teen, I did courses on how to leave your body when you die with some Tibetan lamas. So, I'm not afraid of death.
Right.
But I think for me, the biggest thing is compassion, and that we're all suffering. And I was on my walk this morning and I was like, everyone is suffering to some degree, even if you have a good life, right? So, and I was looking at a tree and it had a limb cut off and it healed over. And it was obvious that it had lost a limb. But we have internal limbs that have been lopped off and bits of us that have, suffered a lot. And I think we all need to be more compassionate to ourselves and to each other. So that's sort of, I'm in a phase of life where I'm feeling very compassionate.
I think that's beautiful. I think it's really important, but I think also to be able to walk through life with grace and compassion, it does begin with us.
Mm.
We do have to find that within ourselves. We have to find that self-love within ourselves, and that is
And I
challenging.
think it's very sad when we have an inner dialogue that's just like this horrible person. Just I don't have that person, but I don't know where that why I don't. But a lot of people, and I hear how they talk to themselves and beat themselves up, and I'm like, oh, you need to be your own best friend.
Right? It's so hard, I think, because people have such, that a lot of people have emotional trauma from their childhoods,
Oh, I
We
think you're
all
lucky. I don't think there's anyone that doesn't have something, because that's part of evolving as you
right,
grow as a child. You're
right.
going to get triggered and impacted by something. Even the best of parents will hurt you by
I think you're right. I think you're right. But we just do the best we can. At what
Mm.
point did you start to find that you were supporting people, spiritual entrepreneurs? And where on your journey did you start to really find your creative spark? And
I think I've always been creative. I love beauty. I love to create things. I've always been a writer and a journaler, and
mm,
I love art. And I've always been doing courses. I'm like, one of my highest values is learning. So, I've learned how to be a death doula, a birth doula. I did my Reiki training when I was like 18. Like, I've done pranic healing,
Wow.
EFT practitioner training, like whatever, but I don't do them professionally. It's weird. I just like to do them and learn them. So I think I've always been doing stuff around that. And I, got Louise Hay's books when I was like 14. And, it's just
You've been
interwoven
traveling
into the fabric of my life.
for a long time. You've been traveling this
Mm.
path since you were, a
I
teen.
just feel like it's just part of who I am.
I think
And
you came in that way.
yeah, I just came here like that. And then professionally, I was a bit confused professionally for quite a while. Like, I worked in IT and I loved it actually. And then when I was pregnant with my daughter, who's called Grace, I love that name, um, I found myself a single parent, escaping family violence, and I just needed to do work that I could do at home and be with my child during the day and then work at night. So that's sort of how I started my business. It wasn't glamorous, it was necessity.
Right. But it got you where you
um,
needed to be. So I feel like that's always how life is, right? Circumstance, divine timing, inner guidance, intuition.
yes.
You do tend to, if you follow the prompts, you do land where you're meant to be.
I
So,
call it following the golden thread. So, whatever's working, I keep following that. And that's how I got into Oracle cards, because I designed my own little, very, very cute little deck. And it's not a fabulous, it wasn't fabulously designed or anything. It was just, I just made it. And then people wanted to know how to do it. And this is little permission slips, based on the work of Brene Brown. And this deck's been wildly popular, even though it's just this tiny little thing. And people wanted to know how to do it. So then I taught them, and then it's just evolved over time. And I just keep following the golden thread and seeing where it takes me. I don't know if you know much about human design, but I'm a manifesting generator in human design, which means like I'm like the ever ready super bunny. I can create and create and create, and then sometimes fall in a heap. So I'm very quick to create things, and I enjoy that creative process. And then, like, over the years of having my business, my daughter's 17 now, so it's been a long time. I say 10 years in my bio because 17 just sounds so old. And during
but it
that
has
time,
been
like,
a lifetime because you started when she was a baby, right? So you could
yeah,
stay.
even while I was pregnant, so in the late stages. So um yeah, it's been a bit of a fun ride. I've had plenty of failures, and I don't consider them failures. I've tried things that haven't worked, and just got on to the next thing. Like during COVID, I started an organic tea business, and it was really beautiful, and I enjoyed the process, but then I didn't have the energy to market it in the way that it needed. So I let that go. I've got a cupboard full of tea behind me. It doesn't expire, it's vacuum sealed.
Plus,
So I'll
that
be
was the plus
drinking
side
my
of
own tea for the rest of my
having
life. So yeah,
that.
and then I've never been able to niche into a topic until the card decks, but I've always niched around the people that I work with, which is, people like you, spiritual entrepreneurs, people who are doing great, beautiful work in the world, healers, coaches, psychics and mediums. I've always got them in my life.
I know. I love that you're able to support us all in this with this beautiful art and these tools to help us share our wisdom and our guidance and our messages. And I just want to thank you for the beautiful work you're doing.
Thank you. It's been very soul fulfilling for me. And
I
I'm
love
not done yet, obviously.
right. I mean, you probably have so much more ahead of you, as we all do, right? But I was
Yeah.
thinking to myself, what a gift it is, because I'm on your newsletter, so I do get your sometimes you share art, images and things like that, and I really love it. So keep going.
Thank you. And I guess for me, like, I really love technology, which is odd for someone quite spiritual, right?
Mhm.
But, I've been in technology since the late 1990s when, the internet first started.
Wow, that's amazing.
So for me, I think there's a lot of tools now that can help people with their creative process. Like I teach Midjourney, I use ChatGPT, and I know AI is the trend of 2023. And I got on the bandwagon in 2022, and I'm just excited to see like where we're going to go with it. And yes, there are scary things about AI that I'm not a fan of, and I'm also very much into ethical use of technology and artificial intelligence. But I think there's also a great opportunity here for people, and including spiritual people.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what you offer is opportunities for us. You give us a lot of tools to create with. Like you have
Yes.
your card deck creators toolkit that you share with people. People can get that. Tell me what your website is so people can find you and
It's
take a look at your.
AyeshaHilton.com. So just AYESHA and then Hilton.com. I know my first name makes it tricky, but I'm sure you'll have the
I'll put
link
it in your
in the
in the
show notes, so it'll be fine.
They'll be
So I run like an academy with courses, and then I have my Soul Stock Boutique, which is an image membership where people can buy images as members. They get 2 new releases a month. But I just love generating images with Midjourney, and people often go to me, I can't create them even with your prompts. I have some weird connection to Midjourney where the artwork is imprinted. It's like when you're talking to Daniel Holman in your previous episode, where there's like a frequency in the artwork. I feel that I'm able to do that as well somehow.
absolutely, absolutely. I think it's really powerful when we can tap into ourselves and allow that download to come through, or inspiration, or whatever you want to call it. But that's your higher guidance speaking
Mm,
through you, through your art or through your words or through your courses or whatever I feel like anything that we touch has our energetic signature on it. You know,
100%. Even the crap stuff that we
well,
create has.
I don't think there
um,
is crap stuff. I mean, creating, we need to embrace all of it, right? But I also believe
exactly.
that people, even if someone is doing the exact same thing as you or I, it's never going to be what we're offering because we have our own unique energetic signature that we bring to it.
And it's a very good reminder. Like, I've had a few people rip off my course. I've had people copy stuff from my course and sell it on Etsy. And it's very triggering. And it's a great opportunity, right? To, anchor back into, minding your own business, keeping your blinkers on, and just focusing on what you want to create.
Yeah. What has given you the inner strength to navigate life's challenges? I know you've been a single mom. That is
And
difficult.
twice I've been a single mom. So I
So
have.
what have you leaned on, or how have you navigated those really challenging times?
I've got to say, there's been many, many tough times. I've had a child with special needs and ongoing mental health and physical challenges. And honestly, it nearly took me out last year. It was so hard. And I know a lot of us have been really struggling in the last few years. Like, I think we're all a little bit burnt out.
Yeah.
The main thing for me is I'm a sharer. So if I'm upset and I talk to a friend, and offload on them, sometimes it's dumping. I've got good friends, and
Thanks for owning
um,
that.
yeah, my poor partner gets dumped on quite a lot. But if I keep it all inside, I just make myself sick. I get migraines and stuff like that. But if I can express it, whether it's like I'm always journaling, writing things down. When I went through my divorce, it was very painful, and I journaled a lot, and it's not pretty. It's quite ugly. It's like rage
But
and
sometimes
pain.
you need to process. That's a good form of processing. We can't, it has to come out. We do
And
have
we
to.
can't be afraid of having emotions, right? Like, I feel like there's a lot of stuff in the self-help world about always being positive, and it drives me mad because
Right.
reality is we're human beings having this life experience. And yes, we've got the spiritual part of ourselves that sits above us and sees it for what it is. But in that moment when you're heartbroken, or you're full of rage and hurt, you have to just own it, and then it can. I think that is the way I've survived my childhood, and a lot of stuff that's happened as an adult is owning those feelings, and but also not blaming it all on other people. Like, being self-responsible, I think, is really important. So not judging the emotions, allowing them to come up and then letting them go and having support. I think we're not meant to do life alone. And when you're that the worst moments are when you feel totally alone and sort of abandoned, really.
Sometimes in the deepest suffering, because we don't share everything, those moments when you're crying in your closet alone, and I've had those.
Yeah.
But I think that's the hardest when you really feel alone in your pain. And
Mm.
you may not be, you may have people who would be more than happy to show up, you know, emotionally or physically for you, but in your deepest grief, sometimes it's a very
And
solid,
sometimes you can't share that, right? Like sometimes it's so
it's so painful.
big. And I know, like last year when things were really bad with my daughter, um, I felt like I had used up the credits with people and they were compassion fatigued. It was really hard to not want to burden them,
Right.
you know,
It's hard to
and
carry
like, yes,
it
they want to
alone.
support you, but there's only so much.
Even sometimes the journaling isn't enough, or the salt bath, or the chocolate, copious chocolate
Yeah.
consumption is what I go to sometimes. But I've also had challenges like that, and it's really, really isolating. But I've found that my connection to myself always helped me to come through it, because I could
Yes.
tune in and I could ask questions and I could see the higher purpose. I could understand the lesson that was
And
being
sometimes there's when you're in the shit, I'll just swear, you can't see that, right? And you just have to get through it sometimes. And
offered.
I'm sure lots of people can relate to that. Like you've just got to, what's the next step? Like I have a deck here called Finding Grace in Challenging Times, which
Oh,
is where I've channeled all my tips for surviving the shit show that is life at times. Um, so, and in this deck, it's just full of compassion, but also practical things that we can do to actually survive when times are so, so tough, you know.
yes, it's really, really challenging, but we have to journey on.
We do, or, as some people have done recently, a lot exited.
Take the
And I
exit.
feel like,
No
yeah,
judgment, right?
I
It is.
got no exit strategy, so I've got to keep going. But there are times when I felt like exiting stage left or right, because
Yeah.
the I think when you experience trauma on a daily basis with a child at that you're not able to leave them like you would if it was an abusive husband or partner, right? Just
Yeah.
the physical toll on your nervous system, like
Mhm.
that's one of the things that I'm really passionate about is nervous system, learning to regulate that. And obviously things will happen and our nervous system will respond. And then how do we come back to that, homeostasis?
That baseline center point, right?
Mm.
I wanted to circle back. You had talked about people who only want to keep it positive, and I want to
Yeah.
speak to that because I feel like you are spiritually bypassing your work if you are just artificially love and light, love and light, love and light.
Hmm.
Because
It makes me nauseous when I hear
we're
that
full
because
spectrum. We are full spectrum beings, and the mastery is being in your neutrality and being able to slide right and be beautifully love and light, but then also to go into the darkness and slide left and raise your voice and stand in your power and own and claim yourself if you need to. This isn't only the small spectrum of existence. I think we're human and we have we need to allow ourselves to have the full spectrum to have mastery of ourselves. And you have to have darkness to have light. It's a polarity situation.
I think the self-help industry, like I was very young when I first, started reading self-help. Like I've been always trying to fix myself, right? But what if I just don't need fixing and I can just be with what is? and not have to be like, I'm an optimistic, positive, high vibe person, right?
Mm.
But sometimes I'm not. And
Right.
that's okay as well.
Yes.
And it's those dark parts of ourselves that can lead us to the most growth and expression, right? And being real about what's going on, and that, we're in the age of authenticity now. Like, people want
Yes.
people to be real. We don't just want the Instagram photos of everyone driving their Ferraris and drinking champagne. We want
Right.
to know what's behind that, because, well, I do anyway.
What I
And
feel is so important right now is that we lean in and peel off all the layers of anything that's false.
mm,
We're really being guided to return to our authentic self and soul at this time to take this planet to light. Anything
definitely.
false, anything shallow, anything that's not authentically you is going to be challenged to release and be processed out right now. And I think we're seeing a lot of shifts for people in their personal lives, whether it's relationship shifts or career shifts or, so much inner. It's like the deepest core wounds and traumas are being triggered in people's lives right now for a reason. It started in COVID, really, so that you could confront the shadow and
We're
transcend.
definitely living in interesting times. Like,
Oh, we're going
um,
through such massive shifts right now on the planet.
yeah. And I'm looking for, it's stressful at times, if I choose not to engage with the news, because
Yeah.
it just isn't good for me. And it's not that I'm in denial. If I want to look something up, or I see something on Facebook, I can explore that. But then sometimes I do that and I just feel so sad. Like, in the town near me the other day, some people were at a pub having a meal outside, and a car just ran over the curb and killed 5 people. And so when I like cried for ages, and I read all the articles about the people, and then I'm like, why am I doing this to myself? I'm not fixing it, but my heart
Well,
just felt
I
so
think I think it's okay to
personally
have
for them.
compassion. It's okay to have
Yeah.
compassion for people suffering but I
Oh,
really feel
100%.
that people are taking many people are exiting. Many people aren't choosing to continue on into this next
Yes,
phase.
there's a mass exodus happening.
And there is a
Um,
mass exodus, and it has to occur in ways that family and friends can and people around them can accept. You can't just
mm.
have this massive vanishing of
It'd
hundreds
be
of
like a
thousands of
Netflix
people.
series where everyone
You
vanishes.
have
They hop
to
on a plane and
they
they're all
have to
gone.
go through, socially acceptable. They have to transition in ways where people can accept it. So whether that's natural disaster or war or, in this case, a crash, but the souls choose their exit points. And I really
Mm.
feel that
I think
we
death,
have
the worst
to
thing for death about death for me is the people left behind, right? Like, that
honor.
is where the tragedy is. Like, if it, when I hear of someone who's lost their child, I don't know how you live with that grief, because
Yeah,
that would be my worst nightmare.
right.
Um, so yeah, I think, if you believe that we chose to come here, sometimes I wonder, why did I make this choice, right? Like, it's like,
Well, you're
but
clearly
I'm
adding
still here.
so much. Because you're here to add your light. You're bringing
Mm,
so much light to the world. You're supporting all of us who have messages to share, and we are trying to reach a broader audience, with our
yeah.
wisdom and knowledge and intuitive gifts. And you're playing such a huge role that's why you came here, so that you could support others and shine your light, you know?
Yeah. And I'm sure I'm not the only one who chose this path and then was like, what the hell? This
I know. And
isn't
then
what
we
I was
got here and we're like, wait a minute. I didn't read the fine print in
expecting.
that
Me up, Scotty.
contract. I did not read the fine print in my soul contract.
And I do not read the fine print on anything. So yes,
It
I
was a
get it.
surprise.
Yeah.
All of
Another
it.
thing I was thinking of recently is like our obsession with having a purpose, right? Like a big P purpose. And I spent my, 20 years looking for my purpose and I never found it. And then I realized that my purpose really is just to bring joy and experience joy. And then I'll have missions. So my mission right now is helping people, express their own brilliance through card decks and books and whatever, but I might have a new mission some other time, but beneath it all is joy. So I think that's reframing that has really helped me, because I know a lot of us are always looking for the capital P purpose and so much pressure on your shoulders, trying to find your purpose and
It's
live that
really
purpose.
important, though, to reframe what we think our purpose is, because my understanding as I've gone further on my journey is that people are looking for their purpose in human terms. Like they think they
Mm.
need to be Oprah or they need to make $1 million and they need, but really our sole purpose has nothing to do with that. It's really about us holding our highest frequency and adding
Mm.
that energy to the collective. And some
And that takes
people,
so many different forms, right? And
it
shows
does.
up
And it
even
could
in
look
our
like
own
it,
lifetime.
it could look like, gardening. It can look like baking and sharing your bakes or taking care of children, or it's it's us being the fullest expression of us. That's our purpose here on the planet, and holding our frequency, doing our healing work and evolving and growing and doing our work so that we can add our frequency to the collective, and through that we
And
raise the
everything's valuable. I don't think like, I've pivoted so much in my business, but nothing's lost. But even like this morning on my walk, there's a public toilet in the park where I walk, and I so appreciate the guy that cleans that public toilet because I don't have a great bladder. And I've told him repeatedly, thank you so much for cleaning this
oh,
toilet. And he's really taken it back. But it's like
yeah,
we always think there has to be this grandness to having
right,
a purpose, but I'm
right.
sure that guy didn't grow up wanting to clean the public toilet at the park, but his actual service makes a huge difference to my life as someone who has to pee a
Totally.
lot.
Totally. So I really feel like we should really reframe what we shouldn't mistake purpose for success.
Oh, 100%.
Those are two totally different things. Our purpose is the reason we were it's our soul mission here.
Mm,
And our purpose is to be the fullest expression of ourselves as a soul in whatever we do. In our daily encounters with people, in how we serve others with kindness,
yeah.
um I feel like as long as we can be our authentic selves and really follow our inner cosmic heart, we'll find that purpose, or it will find us, because it's already innate and we have everything inside to step into it, you know
Yeah, I do.
sometimes we get overwhelmed with, like you were saying, we have these inner narratives and stories and pressures we put on ourselves. And I really want to encourage people to let that go and just, like you said, just follow the golden thread. I love that.
I really love that as well. So, and you can see those threads, and sometimes they're intuitive nudges or, some opportunity that comes, and sometimes we ignore them, right? And then we go, oh, bugger.
Yes. And
Later.
then you get the consequence of veering off
Yeah.
the
I
path.
think, growing up Buddhist, you had your guru, and, even in the broader, spiritual world, people were looking for a guru outside of themselves. But now is the time where we're coming back to our own wisdom and our own intuition. And I'm really, really excited by that. And I even see it in how card decks are changing in the community. Like I had a call with my community yesterday, and half of us are over guidebooks, right? Throw out the guidebook and
Mm,
like have the image, have the words, but then it's coming back to the person's own intuition and their interpretation of the meaning of the
yeah.
cards. And I really love that.
I love that too, because everybody has their own interpretation. Everyone has their own specific mission. And it's not a cookie cutter thing at all. We're all here to journey on, to leave better than we entered, to leave as a maybe more slightly more evolved being than when we came in.
Hopefully more involved. And
Hopefully.
yeah, hopefully. And I think we all have intuitive gifts. Like, I don't mean going out and doing psychic readings or tarot readings, but the more we listen to the internal light and that power within us, I think the easier life will be. Because we live, as a mother of a teenage and a younger child, the amount of stuff coming at them, and even for us, right, with technology and,
Mhm.
we're consuming so much external stuff, and we need to break out of that and come back into our own power and listen to ourselves more.
I think shutting out the noise is so important and just really creating silence and space to hear ourselves is really important. And I know you have teenagers. My kids are 29 and 31, which is hard to believe. Um, they think I'm crazy, and I'll just say it. They think what I do is crazy. But I just have to keep following my own inner light. And I feel like our children are the future. I feel like they have a lot of gifts, innate gifts, and not all of them are aware of it.
It is very different being, growing up in this era. Your children are a little bit older, but even like my 17-year-old, her experience of, technology and, capacity and the things that they can dream of. And she's not into spiritual things at all, but my son is totally into spiritual things, and we do
Oh,
all sorts of
I'm glad
fun
that
things
you have
together.
that in your life.
We got
That you
one.
bond. You got one. I got 0 for 2.
Yeah.
But you know,
But they're still young. They may, come
and
around, and they may not.
I think they have a lot of abilities, but they won't acknowledge it. They have incredible intuition. One of
Mm,
them reads energy, but doesn't call it that.
yeah.
So
They can
everyone's
call
on
it
their own
whatever they want.
whatever. They can just be whoever they need to be.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna judge it or control it or anything. But what do you feel has been the the thing that has helped you? We all have our tools, right? When we're being challenged, what do you lean into when you're besides friends? Do you have any practices or walking in nature or things that kind of help to ground you and bring you back to center?
I have tons of tools, right? Because I've done 1,000 courses about tools. Like there's
But
EFT.
what supports you specifically,
I think for me is water. So I have a lot of baths and I buy Epsom salts, in
Mhm.
25-kilo bags. I've got to
Yeah.
drag it up my stairs. It's so
Oh my
heavy.
gosh.
I feel like, and it seems like a weird practice, but if I can just wash and be in water, I feel so much better. And yeah, going for a walk in nature definitely. Music as well. Like last year, I used to cry in the shower when things are really tough and play "I'm Still Standing" by Elton John,
I
and
love it.
like and I would sing it as well. So I think music has so much power. Like when you say you've had a heartbreak, and you've lost a relationship, listening to sad relationship songs helps you process it, but then it comes to a point where you need to shift to the uplifting songs to move you out of that mood. And I know, like, say if I'm having relationship problems, I'll actually go and watch crappy Hallmark lovey-dovey movies
I don't
or
think you're alone in that. A lot of people do that.
but so it really depends on the what's happening, what
Hmm.
the antidote is for that. But I know, like, when I'm cranky with my partner, if I go and watch lovey-dovey movies, that can help me open up to the possibility of the love that I'm wanting. So instead of focusing on just how annoying things are, I can focus on what I want to create.
I've really found that when I'm starting to project something out, I really catch myself and I go, oh, what is
Mm.
being triggered in me? Something's happening in here, when I'm feeling something a little more amplified. I recognize my pattern and then I start to really turn the lens back, inward. But those are such wonderful tools. And I
Look, they're
think
not particularly spiritual, but they work,
I think
and I do
that's
have.
important. That's important, right? That you have the thing that works. And for me, the sea salt baths are something that's a daily thing for me,
Yeah.
to meditate and connect to myself and just be silent and just soak in there. And just like you said, it's just something cleansing about it.
And I've also, a couple of years ago, I think it was during COVID, I was studying with William Whitecloud, who's, what are his books called? Oh, I can't even remember now, but he teaches about, super conscious. So for me, like I have a daily practice of, I've got things that I want to create in the world. So I zone in and tune in to creating those. And
Mhm.
like if I'm having money troubles, like, because, when you work for yourself, your money income can go up and down.
Sure.
And then I feel like there's this financial tap that can come on and off. And the more I freak out about money, the less money I have.
It
So
almost
then I
turns
have
the
to,
spigot off, right? When you're
yeah.
in that.
So then I'm like, okay, how do I, like, I'm planning this trip with my son next year. And as soon as I decided that, my income shrunk, right? It's
Oh,
like there was
gosh.
part of me that was in resistance to that
Right,
idea. And it
right,
was getting quite bad. And then I said, okay, what can I do to focus on what I want to create? And so then I said, any money that comes in, 10% is going into our travel fund. So that's actually refocused me from, so this isn't what I was talking about before, like being positive over, you know, silly, like in a crazy way, but it's like, okay, where can I put my attention rather than focusing on the lack? I'm focusing, okay, even if I make $10 on one sale, $1 going into the travel fund for India next year. So that actually, then once I did that, the tap came back on because I wasn't stressing about the tap. Or we have a store here called Kmart, which is probably like Walmart. So when I'm feeling like financially restricted, I'll go there and I'll just buy something pretty for the house or whatever. And I'm just telling the universe, hey, it's fine to spend some money. And that
right.
seems to work for me.
I feel like our energy really does drive it.
Hmm.
People don't understand how powerful our frequency is, how powerful our core beliefs and thoughts are. And the beautiful thing is we're such powerful creators. If we're creating lack, we can certainly create abundance. It's
Yes.
the same
We are
thing.
we are very powerful. So let's, harness it for more of what we want. And I
100.
think another thing I'm passionate about is like getting clear on what it is you truly desire. And even with like my permission slip deck, a
Mhm.
lot of that is focused on, let's get real. Like we have pretend desires that are socially acceptable to our family, our community, or whatever. But what is it that you actually really want to create, and getting real
Right.
about that, and owning it rather than pretending that's not what you want. For me, like I like to have spa days, right? People
Mm.
might judge that. Or I like to have a cleaner. I tried not to have a cleaner and I hated it. And I'm very tidy. I clean my own house, but I've got a lot of floors and stairs, and I want someone to deal with those. And it's okay to want whatever you want. Your desire is an indication, right, of what you want to create. You wouldn't
I
desire.
love that. I love that. And also, I also have noticed that as a spiritual entrepreneur, as you call it, a lot of us were raised with this programming that you had to give your services away or discount your services and not really charge what you're worth. And
And this is a very feminine thing as well. Like
yeah,
women do it a lot. Like I used to run community organizations, and our pay was like this. And we do things that men would not do. We do things
right,
for free that men would never do, right?
right,
Often.
right.
Yeah.
Yes,
And I don't think you can ever charge what you're worth. That's a ridiculous notion, right? Like there is
exactly.
no price. You're not worth anything that people can pay you. So it's finding, when I've coached people in the past, on their business pricing, I'm like, you've got to find what's energetically appropriate at the moment. So people will go, oh, you've got to charge $500 an hour. But if you think you're only worth $90 an hour, well, if you put it up at 500, no one's going to buy it, right? You've got to
Right.
find that bit, that sweet point where it's valuable to you and to the person that you're working with.
Well, I feel a big part of it is owning and claiming your worthiness and
Mhm.
being able to bring that energy to your pricing and really feel your value and what you're
And
offering.
also getting real that you can't be in business without making money, right? Like
Right.
you don't
Right.
have a business if you don't make money. And
Exactly.
that I've seen some people in some Facebook groups saying, "Oh, I feel bad charging for my services while there's stuff with Israel and Palestine is going on." And it's like, but if you worked in a supermarket or a store, you're still going to go to work, right? Like your bills are not going anywhere.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
So I
Feel
think
that's
like
so
it's being
true.
real. Money is good. Money is good. We have to reprogram. I love
Abundance
money.
is a good thing.
And
And
the more you have, the more you can put it back out there into
exactly.
circulation.
I just kind of look at it as just energy. It just
Hmm.
flows, it comes in, it goes out. I always feel like I have enough, I have more than enough. I live in an
Yep.
abundant flow energetically, and I feel like that just allows me to, give back and receive and give back and
Hmm.
receive. And I just pour from the overflow all the time. But
Love
there
it.
are a lot of people in a lack mentality, and I feel like that just really does tie to a program of unworthiness or maybe
It's
there were
even
past
social
lives.
conditioning, right? I
Maybe there
don't
were.
know if you have it in the US at the moment, but got the cost of living crisis, right?
Mm,
It's just people are getting bombarded with the idea that they're not going to have enough, right? And on the one hand, yes, our mortgages have, gone up a significant amount. The cost of food has gone up a significant
mhm,
amount, but somehow we're still surviving and hopefully thriving.
right.
But
Yes,
that's why you've got to be careful what you ingest from mainstream media, right?
I
Because
turn it
it's easy.
off mostly. I just don't participate in it because that's a narrative that's being force fed, and we also have a
It's
choice.
not healthy for you.
We also have a choice to turn it off. So I just
I'm trying to be in my
turn it
positive bubble, like, where I'm like, I know I can create what I want.
exactly.
Um, and that's not me being delusional.
Well, no, I think you also have reached a level of consciousness where that's your reality. Someone
Mm.
who's not there might say, I don't believe that. But for those of us who do, you know, it works. Like for
And
me,
money is a great teacher, right? Like,
yeah.
when I first launched my card deck course and I started advertising on Facebook, and I'd wake up and, I'd had all these sales and it was Sunday morning and I'm just lying in bed and, I've made money. It was such a beautiful experience. But then after a while, I hit another sort of stretch zone where I was like, oh my God, what if this doesn't last? And so then you get into this fear mentality and then you've got to overcome that. So like money is a great teacher, right?
It
Like, and
is.
it's
I think
easy.
everything is a great teacher. Everything
Mm.
is a great
Yeah.
teacher. But the way out of and through is through consciousness.
Mm.
Paying attention to what we're thinking, paying attention to what story we're telling ourselves and rewrite the story. I mean, we are the artist in our own lives. We are the canvas and we hold the paintbrush and the paints.
Or like we're the leading lady in our movie. And I think other than just that consciousness aspect and the introspection, it's actually taking what's the next obvious step, to take to, you can, if you're not making money, okay, what is the next simplest, most obvious thing I can do, right? And anything that we want to create.
Mhm. It always starts with the first step, but people sometimes get bogged down in not knowing how and and not being able to have the vision of how it's going to work or how they're going to figure it out. People get really stuck on the how, but
Mm.
from my own perspective, I just trust that once I start taking the first step, like you said,
Yeah.
it will just build on itself. And then we have the internet, we have resources available, we have people, we have classes that can support whatever we're trying to learn. We have a lot of things to support us in our vision. And the first step really is believing that we can do it.
Yeah. And I think that we're just got so many resources inside ourselves that we forget about as well.
Yeah, for sure. That's the golden ticket right there. Is
Mm.
if we can just really align and follow our inner compass, we will always lead ourselves right where we need to be. And
Even
sometimes,
if it doesn't look like it,
even if it
because
doesn't
how
make
many
sense,
times I've gone in the wrong direction, looked like the wrong direction when I got there, but it took me further than if I'd gone where I thought I was going to. So
exactly. I feel
yeah.
like living from the heart and following our inner guidance is the way. That is always going to keep us aligned. It's when our mind gets involved that we get pulled off and out of alignment, because our
Yes, that's
mind
bloody mind.
that mind has a lot to say and it's never really supportive, so I try not to have thoughts and just really be in my heart space when I'm making decisions in my daily life, and just follow
And
that.
we're hardwired as human beings with a brain that is always trying to keep us safe, right? So it's doing its best to keep us safe, but often from things that it doesn't need to do it
Which
anymore, right?
maybe an illusion, because a lot of fear is just
Yeah,
project illusion. It's not ever really going to come to
100%. And the
pass.
brain can't help itself. So you've just got to go, hey, brain, see what you're doing. Thanks.
Yes, give it
But
a
I'm doing this thing.
give it a little sleeping pill and sedative and put it to the side, and just
Yeah.
focus on your intuition and heart. This hour went so fast. I feel like I could talk to you for 3 hours, but
I feel like we've probably gone on a lot of tangents. I was wondering, oh, how are you going to summarize this into a title? But
I
I hope
always
everyone's
I
enjoyed
always
it and found it
find
useful.
that in these conversations, wherever we go, someone finds a jewel or nugget that resonates. And so, Aisha, it has been an absolute honor and pleasure having you as a guest on the show. And I know I'll be having you back because it was such a treat to talk to you today. And to my audience, I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you for being on the journey with us. I love you all. Be kind to yourselves. I wish you guys would leave me a voice message. I want to do these voice messages and connect with y'all a little more personally and add them into the show. So click on the voice message box and leave me a voicemail. That would really excite me. I love you guys. Have a beautiful day, and we'll see y'all later. Bye.